Teddy, you're very cute, but, sir, I'm making a video. Like, just stop showing him your ass. Welcome again, Endurance Nerds, back for another workout on Zwift Academy Road, brought to you by the fashion stylings of our friends at Nintendo. This video is not in any way sponsored by Nintendo. I would love a sponsorship from Nintendo if at any point in reality they would actually give a shit who I was. I can play some original NES circa 1982 like a boss. I'm gonna date myself. We're gonna forget that I said that and we're just gonna talk about the workout, okay? I never said anything. Now, if you haven't caught my first workout video, I'm going to leave it up there and down in the show notes down below. I do recommend watching that one first as I talk about some overarching workout information for the Academy that I don't want to repeat for those people following along with the series. At any rate, it's not going to harm your ability to follow along if you have not yet seen this video. I also lost my screen recording of my ride today. It did happen. I have receipts. It's on Strava. I have my stars, but OBS decided to unceremoniously crash on me and I wasn't going to try to get it back online mid-interval. So you're going to have to bear with what I'm telling you. There's only a few things I wanted to be able to show you on the screen, mostly relevant to some of the on-screen prompts. I'll do my best to tell you where they are so you can keep an eye out for those things. But such is life. We're going to get on without it. You're just going to have to look at my ugly mug a little bit more than usual here today. Now, let's talk about workout number 2, which is called FTP short blocks. And this workout is going to be quite a bit harder than the last one for many of you. We're going to be doing all of our working sets at or above our FTP. So it's going to put a lot more load into the system. You're not going to have to deal with as many sustained efforts, but trust me, you're going to build up quite a bit of fatigue working at your FTP. I think a lot of you are going to find this challenging. If you are newer to structured training or newer to threshold work, I certainly recommend the shorter workout. And if you're not feeling 100%, also recommend that shorter workout. You're going to learn quite a bit from this workout here today about your general fitness, your recoverability, and your repeatability. You'll be able to tell whether or not your FTP is really within striking distance of being accurate, or if you're going to have to start making some adjustments or retest. There's a lot that can be learned by doing this amount of work at your FTP. There will also be some indicators along the way that will help you to get some feedback. I'll talk about that as we talk through this workout, but this is going to be a tough one for a lot of you, so prepare for this one. It's going to be a big step up. So before we get into the particulars, I want to show you one quick change that some of you might be seeing via the update that just came out today, and that's to how the workout screen is going to look here. There's going to be some more updates, I suspect, over the coming weeks and months. Some of you might be seeing this, some of you might not, but it is worth mentioning because there is one particular element here that might catch some of you out. So let's jump into the workout screen here real quick so I can show you. The new design here is following the new tile design of the new main menu. And you can see here right at the top, they've got the relevant workout blocks here pinned to the top so they're easy to find for you. The workout tutorial, they're going to leave there all the time. And I suspect the Zwift Academy 22 will be placed back into alphabetical order once the Academy is over. You'll also see on the left-hand side, you have a few menu options here. You can go to your custom workouts over here. You can create a new workout. You can sort by duration and effort if you have an entire catalog of custom workouts in here. And then here's a section for all workouts. It seems a little redundant to have just a list of every single workout in alphabetical order, but it's actually so that you can use this sorting function for duration and effort yet again. You can sort by very easy to very difficult. Now you might be wondering why you wouldn't just place this filtering mechanism up into this collection screen here. And you're gonna see in a moment why I think they did that, and I think eventually that will all be combined into one screen. But if I go into the Academy over here, you can see that I've got a tile for each one of the workouts that's available here. Here are the long workouts along the top. In the middle, you've got your pro contender workouts. And then at the bottom, you have your short workouts. But interestingly enough, when I click on one of these tiles, here I am back into the legacy menu. Now I suspect the legacy menu is eventually going to go away, but because not all devices are on the new menu system yet, I suspect that this is staying here until they can start to move all devices away from this, and I think eventually we will see this disappear. But there is some nuance here that you need to keep an eye out for if you're going to do the short workout. Because if I select one of the short workouts here, let's say I pick pyramids, both of these are selected, and you can see I'm still showing the long workout here. So if I just click workout after I select the short one, I'm actually going to be in the long workout. So I have to make it a point to actually select the short workout so that it shows up down here before I hit workout. So I don't want to see some of you getting caught out and selecting the wrong workout and perhaps failing when you know you weren't going to be up for the longer variant. So just keep an eye out for that if you're on the newer workout screens. But let's get into talking about today's workout, which is FTP short blocks. Now, I'll talk about the longer one yet again today, but the long and short workouts are very similar. But as I mentioned, you're going to be doing all of your work at or above your FTP. Now, the purpose of this workout is actually quite similar to the last workout. In the last workout, we were doing sustained efforts at our sweet spot to help to drive our ability to sustain longer and longer periods at higher percentages of our FTP. This is doing the same thing, but it's doing it at your FTP by breaking down the longer sustained efforts with small micro rests in between. So you're going to have these longer blocks for the working sets that have small rests in between, just enough to break up those efforts both mentally and physically to get through a longer block that you might not be able to get through without those rests being there at all. So let's talk through the structure of the workouts here. You can see that the long workout and the short workout are very similar. The difference that they've made is actually removing one full working set. You have one 8-minute block with 4 repeats, one 10-minute block with 4 repeats, and one 12-minute block with 4 repeats. On the shorter workout here, you can see that you've had the final working set removed. So you have the 8-minute and then you have the 10-minute working set of the 4 repeats each here, but you do not have that final one. So if you're looking for a little bit more of a challenge, you can go for the longer workout, but you're going to have quite a bit of fatigue built in from these 2 blocks here. So just be aware of that and go for the workout that's going to be the most productive for you. So I'm going to talk again through the longer workout here and understanding that you're just going to truncate that last working set for the shorter variant. So talking through the structure real quick, you're going to have the same ascending warm-up that you saw in workout number 1, 8 minutes ascending from 40% of your FTP up to 80% of your FTP. Then you're going to get a 3-minute recovery valley at 55% of your FTP, and then you're going to move into your first 8-minute block, and that is comprised of 4 repeats of 1 minute and 30 seconds at 105% of your FTP and 30 seconds at 55% of your FTP. So you're going to do that 4 times, and that's going to create that first 8-minute block. Then you're going to get 4 minutes of rest at 55% of your FTP, and then move into that second 10-minute block, which is going to be where the on intervals are going to increase by 30 seconds each, but you're also going to reduce your power. So now you're going to be doing 2 minutes at 102.5% of your FTP with that same 30-second recovery at 55% of your FTP, and again, repeating that 4 times. Now, if you're doing the shorter variant, you're going to move right into your cool down. If you're doing the longer variant, you're going to get yet again another 4 minutes at 55% of your FTP, and then you're going to move into the longest set of the entire workout, which is going to be the most challenging because you're going to have the most fatigue built into your legs. And again, you're going to add another 30 seconds to each of the on intervals, creating 2 minutes and 30 seconds at your FTP and 30 seconds of rest at 55% of your FTP, again, repeated 4 times. Then you're gonna move directly into your cool down that's going to ramp you down from 55% of your FTP down to about 40%. I do have a bit of a criticism for this workout. I personally believe that these intervals here in between these rest sets that are at 55% of your FTP, not the 30-second rests, but the 4 minutes between the working sets, I believe that those should actually be at something closer to 40% of your FTP. Full recovery. 55% is right at that break point between your zone 1 and your zone 2. The purpose of these recovery intervals in between the working sets is to generate full recovery, to bring your heart rate down, to get your cadence back under control, to get back on top of your breathing. Doing it at close to zone 2 is not going to allow as many people to get that heart rate fully recovered, to feel like they're fully ready to prepare for the next set. 4 minutes can pass pretty quickly, especially if you're feeling tired. It's not that it's an inadequate period of rest, it's that I think that they set that benchmark a little bit too high. There is no appreciable benefit for doing those recovery intervals at 55% of your FTP. The few extra kilojoules or few extra TSS that you're going to be doing by putting out a little bit more wattage at those recovery intervals is going to be far outweighed by the potential benefit that you would get by getting that little bit of extra rest and then being able to hit the on intervals strong. And I'm mentioning that because for those of you who want to maybe adjust it to be a little bit better in terms of the workout and are less concerned with stars and all of that bullshit that you can get within Zwift, I recommend maybe turning off erg mode or turning down the bias for your recovery intervals so that you can get full rest. There is absolutely no shame in doing that. You haven't failed the workout if you take true rest in between those working sets. So just a recommendation there to modify the workout so you can get a little bit more out of yourself. It's better to go into the working sets strong and actually get the benefit of those working sets than do a little extra work during your recovery, so to speak. On the note of bias, in this workout, it was in the first 6 or 7 minutes in the warm-up. I wish I can actually show it to you on the screen, but they were talking about turning down the bias. They had gone out of their way to make mention that Zwift allows you to turn down the bias up to 25% and just set it to anything that's good for you. I think that's bad advice. I really think that that's a little bit lazy when it comes to workouts from coaches that have created this workout. I think it's a little irresponsible. If you are turning down your workout bias by 25% for a threshold workout, you are not working in threshold anymore. Full stop. You are not getting the intended benefit of the workout. If you need to turn down the bias by 25%, one of two things is going on. A, your FTP is wrong, or B, you're just too fatigued to do it on the day. If that is in fact the case, then you should be taking that extra day of recovery, or you should be adjusting your FTP appropriately. And that is what the coaches should be telling you to do, not to just crank your bias all the way down. If you're just using this for a kit unlock farm, do whatever the hell you want. But I think most of you watching these videos aren't looking to just get the unlocks, you're looking to get the benefit of Zwift Academy Road. So I caution you against using that advice to just crank your bias down. I really don't think for a workout like this, you should be turning your bias down more than 5, maybe 10%, because again, you're moving yourself out of the zone. Reevaluate if your FTP is set correctly and whether you've gotten enough recovery if you feel you have to go above 10%. I'm not saying that to be mean to anybody. I'm just saying that because I want you guys to get all the value out of your training as humanly possible. Not to mention there's a mental component. As soon as somebody gives you permission to make things easier, the brain is going to take it on you. That's just human psychology. I'm not saying that anybody's lazy for doing that, but I want you guys to make these decisions with all of the information and do what's appropriate for you. Now, with that rant out of the way, let's talk about some tips, strategies, and some things to look out for during this workout. I'll talk again about cadence. I think you have a little bit more flexibility with cadence on this one because you do have those small 30-second micro rests in between so that you can continue to course correct that cadence and bring it back up if you are starting to bog down. It's a little tougher with the sustained efforts. I would still recommend something between 80 and 100 RPM. You can certainly go higher if you spin things out, especially earlier on in the workout while you're still fresh, but don't ramp up your heart rate too much by doing that. If you are more of a grinder, you probably could survive in the mid 70s. I don't know if I would spend too much time there. You might see yourself decay into that direction as you get later in the workout. I would still try to keep things in that sweet spot between 80 and 100 RPM so that you have somewhere to go as you get fatigued. Now, as we're talking about getting towards the end of the intervals here, when you're doing the long version of this workout, they got lazy with the prompts and they screwed up towards the end. Before you get to that last working set, about a minute before you start that set, it tells you that you have 8 minutes of work ahead. You do not have 8 minutes of work in that last working set. You have 10 minutes of work. Now, that might not be as big of a deal, but if you get to the very last interval, 2 minutes and 30 seconds at your FTP, at a minute 30 to go, it tells you 1 minute left. I think that's fucked up. I think it's rude, to be perfectly honest with you. How do you do that to somebody? You say 1 minute left and they start to look down and bury their head for a minute and they realize they still have another 30 seconds after that. It's rude. Do better, Zwift. But anyway, the 30 seconds rest are not full recovery. Don't expect them to be. You're not going into your full recovery power zone and you are not going to get that long. That 30 seconds will pass pretty quickly. So during those 30 seconds, really focus on your breathing, some strong exhales, and try to get that heart rate a little bit more under control. You're not going to see that full recovery in your heart rate, but you might see yourself drop somewhere between 5 and 8 beats per minute. And that can really help you to not start to feel quite as fatigued or as labored, and you can really focus on executing the power from your legs. As I mentioned in the last workout as well, if you can ride through the arch just a little bit, you don't have to do it quite as severely because you will get that full recovery. But letting your cadence drop off too much during the recovery valleys, you might find yourself spending more time during the recovery trying to adjust your power and your cadence than you are actually recovering. So trying to ride through a little bit and letting the trainer do a lot of that work for you if you're in erg mode is probably the best idea for you. The third thing I'm going to mention for you to keep an eye on is your heart rate. Now, I'm not going to deep dive heart rate here. If you are interested in understanding more about heart rate and zones, I'm going to leave a video at the end screen and down below. It's going to be pretty valuable for you to learn more about your heart rate and your lactate threshold heart rate. Some of you already know what your lactate threshold heart rate is, and what you're going to notice during these intervals is that you might not reach your lactate threshold heart rate, because after each of those minute 30, 2 minute, or 2 minute and 30 second efforts, you're going to get that 30 seconds to let that heart rate back off a little bit. What you might find is towards the end of each working set, you're going to start tickling on that lactate threshold heart rate. A good indication of your fitness is how quickly you can shed a few beats per minute during those recoveries. It can tell you where you are, how accurate your FTP might be. If you do know what your lactate threshold heart rate is, and you find yourself in the first interval or two already blowing past your lactate threshold heart rate, you might have to adjust your FTP down. It might be a little bit too high right now. I wouldn't get too caught up in heart rate if you're not super familiar with it, but it is something that might be able to give you some feedback as to where you stand and how accurate your FTP set in Zwift might be. Now, I don't believe it was mentioned during the workout prompts. If it was, I missed it, but they didn't give any explicit direction as to whether or not they want you to do these workouts standing or seated. In general, if it's not otherwise specified, you should be doing them seated. It doesn't mean you can't change things up and do 1 or 2 of the intervals standing, but be careful earlier on if you're going to be using a lot of standing intervals. Doing that usually puts a little bit more torque in the legs, again, burning up those fast twitch muscle fibers, and you may find that that fatigues you more. So if you're going to do a standing interval, maybe you save that for the last interval in each of the working sets. Just a recommendation, certainly not a requirement, but you can do what's right for you to get through each of those sets. This workout here is going to give you about 62 TSS in 53 minutes, so that's a pretty substantial return for time. So it's an efficient workout. You're getting a lot of work done. You're doing about 22 minutes at your FTP in that 53-minute time span. It's not the hardest workout in the world, but I think you're going to feel pretty taxed by a workout like this. Now, if you're a little bit more on the advanced side, or if you're fresh, by all means, do maybe a 30-minute endurance extension at zone 2. But in less than an hour, you can really get a lot of work done here. Beating the dead horse here yet again, sugar. You're going to need sugar for this workout. Full stop. You're going to be burning a lot of sugar working at your threshold for all of these working sets. Make sure that you have it. Fuel up before your workout. Bring some sugars on during the workout. Those 4 minutes rest in between might be a good time to grab a gel, or grab a couple of blocks, or grab a couple swigs of a sport drink, something like that. Don't fail a workout like this because you just run out of sugar in the muscles. Now, another piece of feedback that you might be able to get to tell whether or not your FTP is set accurately is feedback from your muscles. As I mentioned in the last video, a lot of people don't know how to discern the difference between the pain of lactic acid burn that comes from lactate buildup and acidity in the muscles, and what comes from just general fatigue in the muscles. Your contraction rate starts to slow down. You start to feel the pain because your muscles cannot keep up with the load anymore. They just don't have the muscular endurance. While it's really hard to describe the way that it feels, you can really use that concept of burn to tell whether or not you're working above your lactate threshold. If your muscles are actually burning, it's often a very sharp pain, and it runs down the front of your quads. That's generally a sign that you're working above your lactate threshold. If you're starting to feel that a lot during this workout, your FTP is probably set a little bit too high. If you're starting to feel really kind of general soreness, you're feeling it all through your legs are having a hard time just turning over and keeping up and just bogging down and getting tired, that's what it feels like to lose the muscular endurance. With something like that, you're really just looking to continue to practice and work your way into sets like this. All is not lost, but you might not have to adjust your FTP too much. That's where you might want to use the bias. And the bias might be a helpful tool for you as you get further along in the workout. If you start to get to the last 2 intervals and you're really falling apart, knocking down a couple of percentage points in your bias is a good way to use that tool. Not cranking it down by 25%, but if you could turn it down by 5, or even if you have to turn it down by 10% for the last 2 intervals, there's absolutely no shame in doing that for finishing out the day. Just be responsible with that type of thing. But try to make that distinction between burning and just generalized pain and fatigue, because it can really help to give you some feedback about where you are. Do not attach your ego. There's so much hubris when it comes to cycling. Nobody gives a shit what your FTP number is. It's not there for bragging rights. It's there to set your training zones. So if it's set too high, turn it down. You can usually make some suppositions in the workouts, whether you might be 5 watts off or 10 watts off, and make some micro adjustments. But if you feel like you're super far off, you might want to do another assessment. Jump in for a ramp test and see what Zwift gives you, and you can make some adjustments from there. But I think this workout and several of the forthcoming workouts in this academy are really going to shed some light for a lot of people as to whether or not their FTP is set correctly. FTP is a tool. The reason that we're trying to evaluate FTP is because we want to set your training zones appropriately. Because out on the real road, nobody gives a shit what power is. We're solving for speed. We're trying to get faster. How do we get faster? We train. How do we train? We use FTP to build our training zones. See how this is all fitting together. So don't be afraid to tweak that number a little bit with the feedback that you're getting from these workouts. Obvious training rules apply when it comes to being well rested for a higher intensity workout like this, and this is certainly one of those workouts that you're going to place some distance between now and the next workout that you do. There are going to be some people in the academy that are going to do all these workouts back to back to back. That is not what this academy is designed to do. If you can actually get through all these workouts back to back to back, you are going to dig yourself a hole from an overtraining perspective or overreaching perspective that's so bad that your performance is absolutely going to move backwards. If your training zones and your FTP is set somewhat accurately, these are going to bake a lot of load into the system. Pros don't do high intensity workouts back to back to back like this. Not to mention pros make recovery off the bike their full-time job. There are going to be people that you're going to see out on the road that use the academy as just an unlock farm, that are going to be riding around on all the new unlocks with the new kit, the new bike paint scheme, and all that stuff. And if you're looking at them and saying, what am I doing wrong? It's not you, it's them. If you're doing these all in a row, you're doing it wrong. As I mentioned in the first video, you should be doing these workouts twice a week, maybe 3 times a week if you're a lower volume athlete and you're able to recover more in between. I will leave how to build a training plan around these workouts. That video will be down below in the show notes. But the only reason I'm doing these workouts as quickly as I'm doing them is so I can get these videos out in front of you guys, so that when you're ready to do them, the video will already be available for you. I have a lot of experience with structured training. I know what my personal thresholds are. I am taking other actions outside of these workouts to ensure that I can recover adequately. I'm bringing my volume down a little bit to offset the fact that I'm putting a little bit more intensity into my weeks. And I know that I don't have anything that I'm training for that it's going to get derailed by doing this over the next couple of weeks. So don't do what I do. I'm being a bit of a hypocrite for the purpose of making these videos. Please don't look around at my videos or people out on the road and think that you're not doing these workouts frequently enough. You have 4 weeks. Take your time. You do 2 of these workouts per week, and I'm including the baseline and finish line ride in the term workout, and you'll have plenty of time to get everything done. You'll be able to intermix some other, whether it's outdoor riding or just some fun riding on Zwift, even if you want to jump into a race here and there. So make sure that you're putting some distance between these workouts, especially after a workout like this one. But I think I've belabored the point enough at this point. So if you have any questions about this workout, please leave them down in the comments down below. If you have any questions about the future workouts, if you're just looking ahead, leave them down there as well. I'll try my best to bake those questions and answers into my forthcoming videos. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that fancy pants thumbs up button. It helps this video get out in front of more people for whom it can be helpful. And as always, I will catch you guys in the next one. See ya.